Right now, if your room drops below 65 degrees, you reach for a thermostat. You barely think about it. A button, a click, warmth. But 20,000 years ago, your ancestors faced winters that would kill you in under an hour. No walls, no heating, no emergency number to call. And yet they didn't just survive. They thrived, had children, told stories, and passed something down through hundreds of generations until it became you. How? The answer is far stranger than they were tough. Toughness alone doesn't beat minus 40 degrees. Something else was going on. Something that changed the entire trajectory of the human species. Picture the world at its coldest point, a period scientists call the Last Glacial Maximum. It peaked around 20,000 years ago. Ice sheets a mile thick buried what is now Canada, Scandinavia, and much of northern Europe. Sea levels dropped so far that Britain was connected to mainland Europe by dry land. Siberia and Alaska were joined by a vast frozen plain called Refugia. The world held more ice than at any point in the last several 100,000 years, and humans were living through it. Not hiding from it in some warm corner of the map. Living through it, on the open tundra, hunting animals twice their size, raising children in temperatures that make a modern winter look like a mild afternoon. Here is the first clue. Your body, on its own, is a terrible cold weather machine. No thick fur, no blubber, no ability to hibernate. Compared to a wolf or a reindeer, a naked human in the Ice Age should have died in hours. So the ancestors who survived didn't out-tough the cold with biology. They out-thought it. The first breakthrough was fire. Not fire in the sense you imagine, a cozy campfire for roasting marshmallows. Fire as infrastructure. Fire is the single technology that made every other survival strategy possible. Controlled fire, all early humans cook food, which made calories easier to extract and digest. It kept predators at bay through the night, and it created a portable pocket of warmth that could travel with a group wherever they went. Archaeological sites across Europe and Siberia show hearths dating back tens of thousands of years, carefully placed inside shelters, sometimes lined with stone to hold and reflect heat. This wasn't accidental. This was engineering. But fire alone doesn't explain everything. You could sit next to the warmest fire in the world and still freeze the moment you stepped outside to hunt. Something had to travel with the body itself. That something was clothing. And this is where the story gets genuinely surprising. For most of human history, our ancestors likely wrapped themselves in loose animal hides, draped like a blanket. Better than nothing, but full of gaps where cold air could sneak in. Then, somewhere between 40,000 and 30,000 years ago, something changed. Archaeologists began finding a small, unassuming object at Ice Age sites. The eyed needle. A sliver of bone or ivory, no longer than your finger, with a tiny hole punched through one end. That needle changed everything. With it, humans could sew. Not just wrap fur around themselves, but tailor it. Fitted sleeves, layered garments, snug seams that trapped warm air against the skin instead of letting it leak out. Archaeologist Ian Gilligan has argued that this shift toward fitted layered clothing wasn't just a comfort upgrade. It may have been one of the most important technological leaps in the survival of Homo sapiens through extreme cold, allowing populations to push into regions that would otherwise have been unlivable. Think about what that means. A needle, a tool smaller than your finger. And it may have helped decide which human lineages made it through the Ice Age and which one did not. Because here is the twist nobody expects. Homo sapiens were not the only humans facing the ice. Neanderthals had lived in cold European climates for hundreds of thousands of years before modern humans arrived. They were stockier, with bodies better adapted to conserve heat than yours. And yet Neanderthals eventually vanished, while the comparatively skinny, less cold-adapted Homo sapiens spread across the same frozen landscapes and kept going. Why? One leading idea points straight back to that needle. Evidence from Neanderthal sites shows fewer tools clearly built for tailoring clothing and fewer traces of the kind of complex, layered garments modern humans were producing. If Neanderthals were relying more on simple draped hides while Homo sapiens were sewing fitted, insulated clothing, that gap alone could have been the difference between a population that expanded and one that slowly ran out of room to survive. Biology gave Neanderthals an advantage. technology and culture may have given Homo sapiens a bigger one. Clothing and fire solved the problem of staying warm. But staying warm doesn't matter if you starve, and this is where the next piece of the puzzle comes in: food. Specifically, enormous, dangerous, life-or-death amounts of food walking around on four legs. The Ice Age landscape was home to megafauna almost too large to imagine today. Woolly mammoths standing over 10 feet tall, woolly rhinoceroses covered in shaggy hair, giant bison, cave bears, and herds of reindeer stretching across the tundra. A single successful mammoth hunt could feed a group for weeks. It could also kill the hunters instantly if it went wrong. So humans didn't just get stronger, they got smarter about killing at a distance. Around this same period, hunters were refining a tool called the atlatl, a spear thrower that used leverage to launch a projectile far harder and farther than a human arm alone ever could. Combine that with barbed points designed to stay lodged in flesh, and coordinated group tactics, driving animals toward cliffs, bogs, or ambush points, and suddenly a group of humans with wooden spears could take down an animal outweighing all of them combined. This wasn't brute force. This was strategy passed down and refined across generations. Hunters had to know an animal's blind spots, its escape routes, the exact moment its herd would panic and scatter in a predictable direction. That knowledge took years to build, and even longer to teach. A single elder who remembered where a mammoth herd crossed a river 10 winters ago could be more valuable to a group's survival than the strongest hunter among them. A mammoth kill provided meat, yes, but also fat for fuel, bone for shelter, and hide for clothing. Sites like Mezhyrich in what is now Ukraine reveal entire dwellings built almost completely from mammoth bones, tusks arched into doorways, skulls stacked into walls. One successful hunt touched every part of survival at once. Nothing was wasted because nothing could afford to be. Some groups didn't wait for the animals to come to them. They followed. Ice Age humans were often highly mobile, tracking migratory herds of reindeer and other animals across vast stretches of frozen ground, moving camp with the seasons the way the herds themselves moved. Survival wasn't about conquering a single patch of land. It was about reading the rhythm of an entire ecosystem and moving with it. And yet none of this, not fire, not clothing, not hunting technology, would have mattered without one more ingredient, arguably the most important one of all: other people. A lone human in the Ice Age, no matter how skilled, was in serious trouble. A sprained ankle, a bad fever, a failed hunt. Any one of those could be fatal without help. But a group could carry an injured member, share meat when one hunt failed and another succeeded, take turns tending the fire through the night, pass down knowledge of which plants were edible and which route the herds would take next spring. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer societies, including work associated with anthropologist Kim Hill, have shown that food sharing and cooperative networks dramatically increase survival odds in unpredictable environments, smoothing out the disaster of a single bad day into something a whole group can absorb. In an Ice Age winter, that safety net wasn't a nice bonus. It was the whole system holding together. Think about what a single failed hunt actually meant. Days of walking, tracking, waiting in freezing wind, only to watch the animal escape. Without a group to fall back on, that failure could mean starvation within a week. With a group, it meant borrowed meat from someone else's successful hunt last month, an unspoken debt that would be repaid the next time luck reversed. This wasn't charity. It was a system, an early form of insurance built entirely out of trust and memory, with no contracts and no paperwork, just the expectation that today's help would be returned when it was needed most. That expectation had to be strong enough to survive real disagreements, real jealousy, real moments when someone wanted to keep more than their share. Groups that couldn't manage that tension fractured. Groups that could, endured. Every one of your ancestors, all the way back, belonged to a group that got this right often enough to keep going. There's a deeper twist hiding inside all of this. The Ice Age didn't just test human bodies, it tested human bonds. And the populations that survived weren't necessarily the strongest individuals. They were the ones embedded in the tightest, most reliable networks of trust. Even geography played favorites. During the coldest peaks, humans didn't spread evenly across the frozen world. Populations clustered into what scientists call refugia, warmer, resource-rich pockets scattered across the map. Places like parts of the Iberian Peninsula, southern France, and pockets of Central and Southeast Asia. These became reservoirs of survival, holding populations steady until the ice began to retreat and the wider world became livable again. So when you put it all together, the picture that emerges isn't one dramatic invention. It's a stack. Fire for warmth, sewn, insulated clothing to trap that warmth against the body, weapons and strategy to bring down enormous, dangerous prey, mobility to follow the food across a shifting landscape, and underneath all of it, a web of cooperation strong enough that no single failure could end a life. None of these things alone would have been enough. A fire without clothing still leaves you freezing the moment you step outside it. Clothing without food still leaves you starving in a well-insulated body. Food without cooperation still leaves you exposed the first time you're too sick or injured to hunt. It was the combination, the stack, that got your ancestors through tens of thousands of years of a world actively trying to kill them. And here's the part that should sit with you. None of that stack has disappeared. It just changed shape. Your jacket is a direct descendant of that first sewn hide. Your kitchen is a descendant of that first hearth. Your group chat, your family, your circle of people you'd call at 2 a.m., that's the same cooperative network that kept a small band alive through a frozen night 20,000 years ago. Tonight, when you pull on a coat, close a door, or lean on someone you trust to get you through a hard week, you're not doing anything new. You're doing exactly what got you here in the first place.